You know how some people say they live for drama? I never thought I was one of them until recently, when I found myself in the center of a storm that I unwittingly helped create. Let me take you back to where it all began, to the moment I realized that the woman I idolized, Dr. Aris Thorne, was less of a savior and more of a charlatan. I met Dr. Thorne 2 years ago during a medical conference. She was a legend in rheumatology, a field where hope is a rare commodity. People lauded her as the pioneer of an experimental treatment, a so-called miracle cure for autoimmune diseases. I was enthralled by her charisma, her certainty, and the promises she made from the stage. I wanted to be just like her, so I joined her research team without a second thought. Dr. Thorne was magnetic, and the research was groundbreaking, or so I believed. Patients came to us with stories of years of suffering, hoping for the cure they'd heard about. The miracle brew she concocted was a translucent liquid she claimed was engineered to reset the immune system. She'd drop a single bottle into their waiting hands with a reassuring smile. And you know what? Patients reported feeling better, swearing by its efficacy, and Dr. Thorne basked in the glory. But I started noticing inconsistencies, things that didn't add up. Publications remained vague about the chemical composition of the cure. The clinical trials were swept under the rug of proprietary secrets. For the longest time, I ignored these red flags. After all, I was complicit in the success story. But curiosity, or maybe skepticism, eventually got the better of me. One night, while working late in the lab, I decided to run my own tests on the substance. My heart was pounding like a drum, as if warning me to stop meddling, to stay faithful to the legend of Dr. Thorne. Yet I pushed forward. I placed a pipette into the liquid, analyzing it through the night. As dawn broke, the results were in. It was sugar water. Plain, unadulterated sugar water. I remember sitting there, staring at the data, feeling a mix of devastation and rage. This was the masterpiece of deception. Dr. Thorne's miracle cure was nothing more than a placebo, cleverly marketed to desperate souls. I knew then that I was standing at a crossroad. I could turn a blind eye and keep living the lie, or I could shatter the illusion and face whatever chaos that would ensue. I sought advice from a mentor, a retired professor I trusted. She listened quietly, her fingers steepled, then said, "Truth has a way of surfacing, Nyra. If you have the means, you must be the one to bring it to light." Her words resounded in my mind like a mantra as I prepared myself for what was to come. I compiled a dossier of evidence, lab results, patient testimonials, and snippets of conversations I'd recorded out of suspicion. My hands shook when I handed it over to the Board of Ethics at the hospital. Watching their expressions turn from disbelief to horror was both terrifying and validating. But that was just the beginning. The investigation was swift and ruthless. Dr. Thorne was confident it would blow over, convinced she could charm her way out of any accusations. She underestimated the storm I had unleashed. When the truth went public, it was as if the entire medical community had been slapped awake. Headlines screamed betrayal, and patients voiced their disillusionment. If you're loving this story, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell so you never miss another one. Dr. Thorne's empire crumbled overnight. Her license was revoked, and she was shunned by the very community that once adored her. Watching her fall from grace was surreal. I'd admired her so much, but seeing her stripped of her accolades felt like justice. Yet I couldn't ignore a pang of guilt. I had admired, even enabled, her deceit for so long. Despite the validation, there were consequences I hadn't anticipated. Colleagues who once hailed me as a promising researcher now kept their distance. Some accused me of treachery, of seeking fame by stepping on the shoulders of a giant. I received hate mail, threats even, from patients who believed Dr. Thorne had genuinely helped them. It was as if I had shattered their faith along with her myth. The backlash was brutal, but I refused to regret my actions. I had exposed a lie that preyed on vulnerable individuals. And while my career took a hit, I found a new sense of purpose. I started working with a team dedicated to ethical practices in clinical trials, ensuring that the desperation of hope would never be exploited like that again. One night, months after the scandal erupted, I found myself alone in the lab, staring at my reflection in the glass. I wondered if Dr. Thorne ever felt remorse, if she ever questioned the morality of her actions. I thought about the patients, those who had believed in her cure, who had felt better, even if it was just the power of belief. Was that brief respite worth the deception? As I pondered these questions, I realized that the real masterpiece here wasn't her cure, but the exposure of truth. It wasn't glamorous or easy, but it was necessary. And in the end, it was the right thing to do. I may have lost a mentor, colleagues, and even a piece of my innocence, but I gained something far more valuable: my integrity. So here I am, a whistleblower in a world that sometimes punishes honesty. I've learned that truth has its own rewards, and while they may not be as immediate or as glorified as I'd hoped, they're worth the sacrifice. Through the chaos and the quiet that followed, I emerged stronger, unburdened by illusions, and ready to face whatever came next.